Shalom. I want to start by saying all praises, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh, Bashim, Yahweh Shai, Bashim, Hakwadash, double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone, and salutations to I can pushing this word in all sincerity and honesty, and the hopeful elect constantly enduring Shalom. My name is Koro Allah. Lord wants makes for edifying lesson. I'm gonna start with 1 Thessalonians 5:3, being we're going into this so-called new year according to the Georgian calendar, but it is what it is, okay? But here it is, we're at the end of 2025, going into 2026, okay? Now, this new year coming in, people wish for prosperity, people wish for abundance, okay? Everyone wants to better themselves. They have their New Year's resolutions and so on and so forth, okay? But we are not in a time of peace. We're in a time of war, and war continues to escalate, okay? So 2026 is going to be very prophetic mainly, okay? Very prophetic mainly, okay? But when you go into the prophecies, it's going into wars and rumors of wars. And not only the wars, but we also see the development of the beast system, okay? So this is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, okay? And they shall not escape. And they shall say peace and safety. So that's the mind state of the people, peace and safety. Everyone wants peace and safety, okay? That's why they put Trump in office, or that's why they voted for Trump. They didn't put Trump in office. Trump was already set up to be in office, okay? But the people wanted Trump because they thought Trump was going to bring peace, okay? But a man does not move according to his own will, but to the will of the Heavenly Father, okay? For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them as travail upon a woman with child. And we're going to see this. We've been seeing this happen all 2025. Earthquakes, storms, floods, fires, right? And also we've been seeing wars. We've been seeing riots, and people have been pushed to the edge, okay? Famines and all sorts of things, right? So 2026, things are not going to get better. People are hoping it will, but if you have eyes to see, okay, you will understand that this thing is just getting started, right? There's all sorts of wars breaking out across the country, across the world, and a lot of it has to deal with the USA, America, okay? Why? Because we're at the downfall of America, okay? Real quick. All right, so this right here is a simple Google list of wars involving the United States. It goes into some history, right? But we want the current date. So it says, as of current date, the United States is involved in 8 public known military engagements across 5 different wars with direct U.S. involvement, including War on Terror, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, and the War on Drugs. The U.S. military campaign. Okay, then it says wars with indirect U.S. involvement, including Russia and Ukraine. Or it says Russo-Ukrainian wars. Okay, it says Gaza war, and it also says Israel-Hezbollah conflict. Okay, now, yeah, there are some proxy wars like Ukraine, Gaza, and Israel. Okay, Israel, Hezbollah. They forgot Israel and Iran. Also, they don't have what's going on over there with China and Taiwan, right? And Japan and America. So it's a few wars that they're leaving out. So then, anyways, this place is being, bombarded with different wars. And most of it is self-inflicted. All right. This is Joel 3, and I'll start at 1. It says, "For behold, in those days, and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem," Judah being the southern kingdom, and Jerusalem being the northern kingdom. Okay, the kingdom of Israel, which is Judah represents you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and Jerusalem represents you Spanish-speaking tribes. Okay, Gad, the so-called North Americans. Okay, from Reuben, the Seminole Indians. This is Joel 3:1. "For behold, in those days, and that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem." In other words, we're gonna be under. Let's go into the word captivity, because you don't want to get confused. To bring away, carry away, lead away, take captive, drive away. Well, in other words, and let's see what exile prisoners, figuratively a former state of prosperity, captive. Okay, so that's not really doing the verse any justice. Okay, "For behold, in those days, and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem." Okay, so this is our last captivity. Judah and Jerusalem is not, or Israel is not going back into captivity. Okay, so when it says to bring us captive, in other words, we're going to be under Yahweh Bashim Yahweh's protection. Okay, we're going to be living according to the laws, statutes, and commandments. We're going to be living in total righteousness. All right, like how we live in this world, but our people live in wickedness. Okay, but now we're going to be under a righteous authority. In other words, okay, I hope that makes sense. It says, "I will also gather all nations and will bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." All right, let's read it again. "I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat." Right, and that's that region dealing with Iran. Okay, I'm not saying Iran is the exact location, but in that region though, Okay, so when we um when we see these certain things in the news dealing with wars in Iran, which Iran is one of the Iran, Israel, okay, it's one of the main countries that's really ready to go to war, which of course they're backed by Russia, okay, but the spirit is also put that spirit of war upon those people. I want to see. It says Joel 3:2, and I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and pardon my land. So Israel, the true Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans were scattered among the nations, and the land was parted, which that land is Israel. Okay, so you have them small hats, and you have those East Indian countries, and they're basically fighting for that land, right? And it's basically two different religions, which you have Judaism, which is man-made. I believe you have Islam, which is man-made. But as far as worshiping the true living power, Yahweh Shai, they don't do it. Why? Because they're heathens. All right. It says, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. So this is going to be a war breaking off in that region. Okay. Anything with Israel fighting these different nations is all prophetic, right? And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, right? So wars is used for judgment, you know. And they have cast lots for my people and have given a boy for a harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. Yeah, this is what happened. You know, this is facts, things that really happened to the nation of Israel. Look into the transatlantic trade. Look into that, and you can get an idea of how low we were brought among these nations and how these nations defiled the Lord's chosen people. This is Jeremiah 51:28 says, prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, her being America, aka Babylon the Great, or that virgin daughter Babylon. It says, prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, right? The Medes is going into Russia. Okay, if you look at that land, that region today, it's in line with Russia. You know, so spiritually, Medes is talking about Russia. It says, the captains thereof and all the rulers thereof and all the land of his dominion. And the land shall tremble and sorrow, for every purpose of the Lord shall be performed against Babylon, which Babylon is, as we said earlier, is America. Okay, you go into the word Babylon, in the Hebrew you will get Babel, which translates to confusion. Okay, so America is that land of confusion. Not only that, but America also takes on the spirit of Babylon. All right, dealing with witchcraft. Okay, it says to make the land of Babylon a desolation without inhabitant, and this place is going to be made desolate without inhabitants. Okay, so we're living in these last days now. But ultimately, what's going to happen? You're going to have these wars breaking out. It's going to be fought by men, but ultimately, it's going to be shot off. Those those nuclear missiles are going to be shot off, and this place is going to be burnt. The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holds. Their might have failed. They became as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken. Yeah, your mighty men, your military force. Even now, you have to present the military with more benefits in order to bring in more people to join. Okay, but now you have to pass bills to automatically register people for the military. All right, and I can pull that up real quick. This is a simple Google. It says the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, fiscal year 2026, that introduces system for automatic selective service registration. Okay, automatic selective service registrations. Automatic registration is not a draft. The measure makes registration for the existing selective service system automatic for those already required to register by law. It does not reinstate the military draft. Reinstating an active draft would require a separate act of Congress. Okay, so this is the law. Their Senate registrations is different from draft, but you need to be registered in order to be even drafted. Okay, so basically something where they're doing it in increments. All right, but ultimately they are going to need men. They are going to need bodies, and you so-called Americans that trust in America, that would die for America as you claim, you're gonna be put to the test, okay? And you're gonna be sent off to fight for your country. And a lot of you niggas, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who are Israelites, right? 2/3 of you are gonna fight for this place and die for this place. It says, Jeremiah 51:31, one post shall run to meet another, and one messenger to meet another, to show the king of Babylon that his city is taken at one end. Let's see something. Get this in NLT a little bit. And all the escape routes are blocked. The marshes have been set aflame, and the army is in a panic. Let's go back to KJV. It says, and the passages are blocked, and the reeds they have burned with fire, and the men of war are frightened. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like this threshing floor. It is time to thresh her. Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. So Babylon is compared to as a threshing floor, which is a violent act. All right, and you have to beat. When it's time for harvest, you have to beat the good grains and separate the grains from the undesirables. Okay, if you into farming, but when you thresh it, it's a violent act, and you actually use a tool that could be used as a weapon. Okay, So, in other words, be at the time of America for America to be beaten, okay, and America will be beaten to powder, as the scriptures say, but with nuclear missiles. All right. So, Allah wants this edifying lesson. I want to say all praise, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shah Bashim Hakwadash. Double honor to the apostles, bishops, and elders, great millstone, and salutations to pushing this word in all sincerity and honesty. Shalom.